This is Lunduke's log for January 22nd, 2020. This is where I talk about whatever the heck I feel like talking about for however long I feel like talking about it in a very unscripted way. I've got a bulleted list in front of me of topics that I might feel like talking about. Maybe I won't get to them all. Maybe I'll get to all of them and then some. I don't really know. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here, boys and girls. And I'm still not convinced. Just to make it clear that I really like the name Lunduke's log. It's not great, but it also makes me smile and giggle. So maybe I'll keep it. I'm not really sure. Feel free to have your own opinion, and I'll just randomly choose something at some point. So until I decide on something better, it's Lunduke's log. Anyway, so someone from last week sent me an email that they thought it was a missed opportunity, that it should be called Lunduke, the Lost Tweets, which I agree. That might be a missed opportunity. That does seem like a better name than Lunduke's log, but we'll see how it goes. Since I'm not doing the social media thing anymore, right? So I'm on since it's January 22nd, and I started my no social media thing, my New Year's resolution to not use social media. I started it on like December 27th, 8th, 9th, something like that. So anyway, I'm just declaring it January 1st because otherwise I'm going to lose track. So we've just crested the 3-week threshold, and it's great. There's no problems. I'm still alive. Not suffering any withdrawal symptoms, other than my righteous beard. But seriously, this beard is impressive to me right now. Sidetrack about my facial hair at the moment, because I'm looking at it like right in front of me is my monitor of me, and I'm looking at me right now, and it's hard to ignore my facial hair because it is not an overly impressive bit of facial hair, right? It's impressive to me though, because I, in my younger years, was very unable to grow decent beards, right? Like I could always do a nice bushy mustache, but the any of this stuff on the chin and the sides and the whatnots, and it was terrible. It was terrible. It was the worst beard ever. I tried to grow one like every 2 years or so. I'd start letting it grow out, and I'd be like, wow, nope. But this time I've been letting it grow, and I'm impressed with its quality now, as opposed to before. I still don't love the look. Like, I'm torn. Like I have very deep, just emotional rifts happening here, because on the one hand, I'm not a huge fan of the beard look for me. I think a great beard looks awesome on the right dude, right? Oh man, a good beard is killer. But my beard though, it's lackluster. It's not the worst beard I've ever seen, but it's not great, right? I'm not coming out with just this big, Kenny Rogers beard. I got a friend who can do a Kenny Rogers beard. I can't do a Kenny Rogers beard. And it just, if I could, I'd just always have a beard. But it just, there's two things happening with my beard that's keeping me from shaving what I have off. The first is that I'm starting to get grays in my beard, and I just think that looks rad. I like gray in a beard, a good bit of salt and pepper, right? I just think it looks great on a guy. I just always have. So I've always wanted that, and now my beard's doing that, and I'm loving that. The second thing is it's just so much better than my past attempts at beards. Ultimately, I'll shave this one off too. Now, the real question is going to be, when I do inevitably shave the beard off, will I shave the mustache at the same time, or will I rock that 1970s mustache for a little while? I don't know. That's based purely on whims. You know what I'm saying? I just a fancy strikes me, and I must go that route. That's just how that's going to fly. So I'm also on no cellular data for one of my New Year's resolutions, and so I'm a little over week 3, and That's been harder than the no social media, but not hard. Like, it's been an inconvenience, I'd say 3 or 4 times now. Other than that, it hasn't really been an inconvenience. It's just been nice. Not like total life changing nice, but like it's an improvement. Like things are a little bit quieter, a little more chilled, and I like that. It forces me to remember the way things were before, in the long, long ago, before society got like it is now. And there were things that were better. There were things that were worse back yonder, like in the 80s and in the early 90s and whatnot. Like there were things that were worse and there were things that were better. And it's making me remember those things that were better. Like it makes me feel them. And I love that. And I'm really enjoying that. So I'm going to keep that going. I think I'm going to be going no social media, no cell data for the foreseeable future. Now that I'm 3 weeks in, I mean, heck, maybe that all changes on week 4, right? Maybe I start and I hit the 1 month mark and I'm like, that's it. I'm out. That seems good enough. I'm gone. But I think I got it. On that note, so I've been going around town. I act like that was all spontaneous, but I just wrote I'm just moving to the second bullet point now. That's legit right there. It's called a segue. So I've been using this little N810, this little Nokia internet tablet. It's basically a PDA. It's got a slide out keyboard. It's about yay big, and it feels great in your hand because the outside is like mostly metal. Not mostly, a good part of it's metal. It's like this metal plate on the back. It's great. And it's got the slide out keyboard, and the keyboard's not stellar, but it's also not bad. You know what I mean? Like it's decent. Good touch screen on it and all that. It's from about 10 plus years ago, and it runs this version of Linux called Mamo. Mamo is the distribution name, and Mamo is based on Debian. It's kind of a lightweight Debian, and the user interface for it is Hilden, which is basically GNOME. It was a GNOME project to provide a nice, themable, lightweight user interface for mobile devices like this. And it was great. Hilden is awesome. It is fantastic. I still think it's a shame that it's not in use by a current cell phone right now. I would go nuts over that. I absolutely would. I think anyone looking at making a new cell phone should just look back at Hilden and go, all right, let's just grab the whole Hilden stack and start updating it maybe with some newer widgets and whatnot, maybe some GTK3 widgets, I don't know, stuff like that. Amazing. It's fantastic. Anyway, so I've got that N810 and I just got a new battery for it because the old battery was like just dead. Like 3 seconds of charge. It was toast. So I got a new battery for it, but user replaceable batteries like the good Lord intended. And I got that. I've been carrying it around with me more. And I'm like, man, this is great. I'm gonna reload like this up. I'm like gonna clean it out, reload it all up. And if you have an N810, because a couple of you have emailed me, and I haven't responded to all of you yet, but a couple of you have emailed me asking where to get software for the N810 and all that. Go to maemo.org, maemo.org. That's the place. And when you go there, go look into the forums, the community forums there. You'll even see me posting a handful of times over the years, not very much. But if you go look in there, you'll find people posting links to current repository mirrors that are set up so you can install software and all that good stuff. So I went there, got everything set up. I also keep kind of a backup repository here locally with some of my extra things that I've compiled over the years. But I was setting everything up, and I'm going to put on ScummVM. And I thought, I'm going to load all of the Space Quest games. I haven't done that in a while. I'm going to play through all the Space Quest games from Sierra for version 1 to 6. Space Quest 1 through Space Quest 6. Great old adventure games. Very, very good stuff. And so I loaded it all up, and you can buy them over at GOG.com, by the way. totally worth it. So I started loading them all up. And you load them all, by the way, on the N810, it uses a mini SD card, which is hilariously difficult to find nowadays. The best you can do is you get a micro SD to a mini SD adapter. Like there's micro SDs, the small ones, SD cards are the big ones. And in the middle was the mini SDs. And nobody uses the mini SDs nowadays. Nobody. But that's what the N810 uses. But luckily I've got a little adapter for it. So I plugged in a new, I think 16 gig micro SD into the adapter there, put that in there, started loading the ScummVM stuff up. And then I launched ScummVM on the N810. And I look at the version. It was like version 1.6 or something like that. And I'm like, way newer versions of ScummVM are available. Obviously, they're not in the repository here because no one's updated that in a long time. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could go get the code for ScummVM and see if I could get a newer version compiling. Like my guess is someone just abandoned it. And, maybe at least I could get one or two versions down the line, like 1.7, 1.8, something like that. Well, the current version was 2.1, and 2.1 added just a ton of new features, all sorts of stuff like new engines, new game type engines. So it's not just Sierra or LucasArts or whatnot, just tons of game engines. And I went to their download page to try and find a link for their source code repository, just to kind of verify that I had the latest that was available, and then to see if I could find some newer ones that would build. Scroll down here, and I'm like, okay, here's ScummVM, right? Look at that. Look, Windows 95. Yeah, they have a Windows 95 installer for the current version of ScummVM. How awesome is that? Debian, cool. Like recent Debian, recent Ubuntu, cool. Recent Mac OS 10, no Mac OS 9. I don't know why. PlayStation 3, the PSP, the Vita, a bunch of different Android builds, iOS builds, though those are kind of a hard thing to put on an iOS device because, friggin' Apple. But then, boom. Right here near the end, a Memo package, specifically for OS 2008, which is the version of Memo, boom, that sits on the N810. Grabbed it as a Debian file, downloaded to there, boom, I had modern, just really recently released version of ScummVM on this decade-plus old Linux tablet. Awesome. Huge kudos to the ScummVM team for doing that. And they play great, by the way. They also have Dreamcast, Haiku, Irix, Amiga, RISC-OS. It's nuts. So check this out. As ScummVM games you can play. So I've tested a ton of these games. Not all, but a ton of them on the N810 so far because I've kind of gotten into a kick. So I've found every old game that was compatible with ScummVM that I've had. And whether it's purchased from the originals or the GOG.coms or something like that, I kind of went through all of them. And I tried out, all the LucasArts games, Maniac Mansion, Sam & Max, Full Throttle, all that stuff. They play great, right? They play great. And you keep going down the line, and a lot of the lesser known titles I didn't have. But then I got to the Sierra games and, King's Quest, and I got all the Space Quests, of course, and loaded those up there, and they play great. Absolutely great. Oh my gosh, so good. But the thing that blew my mind is I went down here. They have this other game compatibility chart on ScummVM.org that lists just games from different engines, all sorts of different engines that are now compatible inside of the ScummVM, because it's not just for one virtual machine, right? It's like a multi-emulator at this point. And I scroll down. Eye of the Beholder, awesome, right? They've had that for a while, though. But the one that caught me that was newer, Might and Magic. The Might and Magic 4 and Might and Magic 5. Clouds of Xene and Dark Side of Xene. Those games are rad. They're these first-person perspective RPGs. And dude, do they play good on the N810. Oh my gosh. So I've got those. I've got Myst on there. So that my little 16 gig some odd card in there, that thing is full already. I wonder how big of storage the N810 can handle, because I might need to just get a bigger card for it. Anyway, I was just super psyched about that, so I thought I'd mention that, because kudos to the ScummVM team. That is awesome. Also, I thought it was cool that, you can grab it for Amiga OS or RISC-OS or a bunch of things, which if you got RISC-OS, you can get that for free and put it on a Raspberry Pi. Then you could put ScummVM on that. Then you could play Might and Magic, Clouds of Zine. Boom. That's awesome. That's awesome. If anyone does that, please take a picture and send it to me. Somewhat, but not really related note. I was pondering the other day. I get asked a lot what my favorite Linux distributions are, right? People just ask that a lot because a lot of people are looking for what their favorite is, and they maybe don't know yet. So they're kind of looking for a little inspiration, or they're just kind of curious what's out there that they may not have given a fair shake and whatnot. And it's a fair question. And I've always kind of been pretty mainstream about it, you know? My suggestions have changed over the years, but realistically, my mainstreaminess hasn't. All the suggestions I give are always like, well, I really like Debian, Elementary's nice, OpenSUSE is a good system. Here's Fedora, here's why I like that. Like, they're all very straightforward. They're Linux distros, right? They're Linuxy Linux distros. They're Unixy and Linuxy, and that's what they are. But what if? Yeah, hear me out on this one, because the idea is ridiculous, and so therefore is worth hearing. Yeah, that's how that works. What if you got a Linux distro, really a Linux-based system that can run Linux desktop applications, but differed from Linux in so many ways that it was more like older operating systems like DOS, early Windows, Amiga OS, early Mac OS, like pre-Mac OS 10 stuff, like olden days. What would that look like? An old school sensibility system based on the Linux kernel. So I started thinking, what would that look like? And my first thought is, that's ridiculous. So many reasons that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But let's go down that road anyway. First, you'd want to get rid of the multi-user aspect, right? So to make it easy, maybe just auto-log the user in as root and pretend like there are no other users available. You're root. You have full control over your system, just like you did in the old days. You could muck with your system to your heart's content, just like in the old days, right? No system was going to prevent you from, screwing with your system files. You could do that if you wanted to. So you're root. Thunderdome, right? You're root. And there is no other users, right? No one, your sister or your Aunt Tabitha wants to use your computer. Well, they're sitting down and they're using the same user account you are, root, because you're at your computer. There's no one gets their own guest account or anything like that, right? Well, to start with, that's horrifying, but also kind of beautiful, right? Like it's just a computer that you sit down. It's just a terminal. It's just open. I don't know. That's kind of cool, and I kind of dig that. Then keep going. Then you keep going, right? What else can we take away that like modern systems have just taken for granted? Like these are just simply features of modern systems. Package repositories. Package formats, right? Let's get rid of those entirely. Automatic updating systems, all of it. Apt and RPM, toss it. Software, online software stores and auto updaters, toss them. There's no auto update packages coming through. In fact, let's make it so the system never, not one time, calls out on the internet by itself. I'm sure applications that you run can, but the system itself, the operating system, and all the components that ship with the operating system never reach out to the internet. Ever. Not to pull something for authentication, not to check for updates or security fixes, nothing. If you release version 3.1 of an operating system based on this, it's 3.1 for life, right? Until you come along and physically upgrade it. And just come in and just say, I'm going to update this using my software update installer or whatever to version 4, right? Until that time happens, it's 3.1. End of story. Again, horrifying. No software updates. No security fixes. My God, man. No easy use of finding curated software and game packages. What are we talking about here? It's insanity. But it's kind of beautiful just the same, right? It's simple. Your computer is what it is. And then what if applications were always single files? Right? Like an old Macintosh. An application tended to be one file. And all of the assets, the artwork, the sound, the data files, anything that was usually contained inside that file in something they called back then a resource fork. But in our case, we could just package applications as app images. Because an app image is an ISO file, right? Which is basically just an archive with all the files inside of it. It's a disk image format, right? So you could already distribute like LibreOffice as an app image. So you can just double click on LibreOffice.app image and click, and it just launches, right? Because it invisibly mounts LibreOffice behind the scenes, so you don't really see it, and just runs it off of that. So all of its libraries and everything else and supporting files are all inside that package. Because you're doing that, you could keep the base operating system lightweight as heck, right? I mean, lightweight. And you could have 20 different versions of LibreOffice or Kdenlive or OBS or any other application you're running, or GIMP. You could have every version of GIMP under the rainbow. And you could have them all just lined up, put anywhere you want, put them on your desktop, put them in an applications folder, put them in a home folder. You can just throw them wherever you like. Right? You can make it as clean and tidy as you want, or as messy as you want. It's kind of freeing, kind of beautiful in a way. Like it's old school, but like the good kind of old school, you know? I don't know. It kind of caught my eye. And then, if you're already going that route, why not go with one of the really old, kind of cool and funky desktop environments? Something old and funky. Maybe CDE, the common desktop environment. It might not be a bad way to go. Old GNOME, right? Maybe. I don't know. Could be fun. I don't really know if it's a good idea. I'll put this bluntly. I see lots of problems and downsides to such a system. Almost too many to list on computers. However, the upsides, even though there's just a small number of them, are kind of adorable. And I kind of like the idea. I've been thinking about putzing on something like this. Every couple of years, I like to do like a Linux from scratchy type thing, right? Like where I try and fundamentally change a system just to kind of tweak it a bunch, or start from a Linux from scratch to build a particular kind of like little appliance. Like nothing big, nothing crazy, just to keep it so that I kind of am up to date on what's going on and keep my brain from rotting too quickly. So I try and do those sorts of things every couple of years. And I haven't really done a Linux from scratch thing in a while. And I thought, well, I could do a Linux from scratch thing like this, make it real simple. I mean, build a dog simple system. And then, I don't know, see if I think it's cool. And if I think it's cool, I can just throw it out to all of you kids and you can decide if it's cool or just should be burned alive, which I think is pretty likely, but it could be fun. I don't know. I kind of like these sorts of ideas just because they're somewhat pointless. And I feel like some of the coolest things come out of just endeavoring for something utterly pointless. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, just thoughts. So, change the topic entirely. Completely different topicization here. I've been publishing articles for a while, for a long while. I mean, I've been in the writing article business for years and years and years, right? I used to do it for Network World and IDG, and then for Linux Journal. And lately, since about November, I've been publishing articles myself, but putting them on my Patreon page. But I've been making them public. They're not like behind a paywall or anything. I've just kind of been using my Patreon page as sort of my blogging platform, really, just for lack of anything, better and more obvious. And really quickly, the articles became the second most viewed thing I do, right? So there's the audio podcast is by far, those of you listening to the audio podcast are in good company, right? By far more than on YouTube or library or the articles, right? It's just that's where it's at. But quickly the articles kicked YouTube's butt down the street and became a strong second. And like part of me was surprised, but part of me wasn't. Just because I've been publishing articles long enough that I kind of know, what I can expect in terms of readership of articles. And so I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool that works, because I wasn't sure, because I'm not publishing with a publishing house. Like, I'm not part of Network World or Linux Journal or anything really. I'm not with any other publishers. In fact, it's kind of hard to read my articles right now. Like, you can go to lunduke.com and like I have a list down the right side of the page. But that's like it. That's like the only place you can go to see where the latest articles are. Unless you subscribe on Patreon, right? Unless you're one of the Patreon patrons, which God bless you, the ones that are, because they get like email alerts for it. But otherwise, people just don't. And yet, tens of thousands of people are coming to read the articles. And I'm like, well, this is rad. This is totally rad. But clearly I'm not doing this 100% right. Because, really, I've got these articles over here at Patreon, which is fine. It's a fine publishing platform. But it's not a very Lunduke way to go, Like, I should have my articles hosted somewhere that's under my own control. I should have my articles hosted somewhere that has an RSS feed, for heaven's sake. It boggles my mind that the article numbers remain as high as they are because there's no RSS feed for them, which is just bafflingly dumb of me. Just say that. Because otherwise I would be seeing probably much larger numbers by this point. And I'm already thrilled with the numbers, but it could be better if I wouldn't have been dumb and not had an RSS feed. So I clearly need to self-publish my articles. Or do I? Or do I want to publish with some other publishing house again? I loved being part of Linux Journal. It was amazing. The people were amazing. It was great. The audience was just stellar. It was just so much fun. Finding something like that would be really cool again. It's fun to be a part of a kind of a publishing team, because even if I'm writing one article here and, a guy named Ted is over there and a guy named Adam's over there and, Michelle's over there and, all the different people are writing different articles. But we can still reach out to each other, throw ideas off of each other. And then when it comes time to promote the articles, if a bunch of people are coming to read my article, then when they're at the site, they say, oh, look over there. Look at Michelle's article or Adam's article, or I can't remember what people's name I said. But then they'll be like, oh, check that out. And then when they go check out their article, they'll look at my article. They go, oh, look at that article, right? It's like mutual cross promotion, and it kind of rising tide lifts all ships. And so you really get that benefit there. That's really nice. But I do like to be the master of my own destiny, right? And I'm already getting the good numbers. I'm getting as good a numbers as, most people get it. Even some of the pretty big publishing houses. Like, I'm not doing bad. So why not self-publish it, right? And then if I'm doing that, how do I do it? Like, technically and like naming wise, right? Is it just, here's the articles I write, guys? Is it part of the Lunduke show? Is it the Lunduke's blog? Is it the Lunduke Journal? You know what I mean? Like, what do I call it? What do I format it like? I have to think about all that. And then what platform do I use to publish it? Like the obvious choice, a lot of people would choose like WordPress or something like that. Like, well, it's not like super my style, I'm more of a static site sort of guy. So then do I use like a Hugo or a Jekyll, which are like static website generators? And like, yeah, I could go that route. And then I got to figure out, do I want that to be part of my main homepage? Like people to go to lunduke.com for it. And then I just have some way that's all formatted nicely. Or do I want that to be a separate place like journal.lunduke.com or thelundukejournal.edu or whatever, right? I don't know. I don't really know the answer to any of that. But I think I've realized I definitely need to keep the articles going, and I need to self-publish them. so that it's easier for all of you to find, so you can subscribe to RSS feeds. You have one spot to go, that people that aren't comfortable with Patreon have a very non-Patreon place to go, where there's no tracking, because I don't include tracking on my website. Like, I don't have any JavaScript on my website. I mean, my web page renders pretty doggone well in like the earliest versions of Netscape and Mosaic and all that. I try and keep that, I make that a priority. So I could have something like that. And that's probably the way to go, right? I think so. I'm going to ponder on it over the next week. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. I'm going to ponder on it a little bit of what's the best place for you lot to be able to get the articles, to find out about the articles, and then what's the most fun for me, right? What's fun, what's lightweight, what kind of meets all my needs to be like very like kind of retro tech friendly, right? So it works well on old browsers, but also is very like static websitey, like I also dig, like all these sorts of things. I need to think about it. I don't really have the answer, but we'll get there. Along those lines, I've been thinking about like, so I have these different publishing venues out there, right? Like, so beyond the articles, there's the audio podcast that comes out, and then there's this direct subscription feed to the audio podcast. People can also get it on iTunes, Google Play Music. Well, I just have it over here somewhere. Google Play Music, and Spotify, right? And of those audio podcast things, the direct audio MP3 feed accounts for like 99% of all the traffic. Oh, well, maybe not that much, but a lot, right? The vast majority. Like if I lost Google Play Music and Spotify tomorrow, I don't know that I'd notice it in my stats, like at all. Like it's just part of the standard kind of like wave of up and down all the time. And then when I'm looking over at the video stuff, I publish on YouTube and Library. And YouTube is interesting because that's where I get far more views on YouTube than I do on Library. But I make more money on Library than I do on YouTube because the system for doing that is better on Library than it is on YouTube. And Library is growing crazy fast. Right now I'm clutching to the number 2 spot at Library, just barely. Like I'm like 50 subscribers up of the number 3 slot. I know it's still like several hundreds subscribers behind the number 1 spot. I'm determined to make it to number 1, but we'll see if I do. I'm growing faster than the number 1, but at the current rate, it's going to take me like till next year before I jump past. So a lot could happen that time. But right now, the growth is phenomenal. Like every week I check in with Library and look through all the stats, and I realize that it's growing faster than my YouTube channel's ever grown, like ever. And like fast enough that when you kind of extrapolate it on in, it's like, whoa, dang. It's not, for me, it's not just a YouTube competitor, but a YouTube obliterator like a year and a half from now at the current growth rate. My YouTube channel is currently growing, but it's not growing anywhere near as fast, right? So it's interesting, but things tend to, at least currently, go viral more on YouTube. So like I'll get the rare fluke of 1 out of every 10 videos or something will just go suddenly much more popular than the rest of them on YouTube. But on Library, I don't really see too much of that spike. Like I'll see maybe a factor of 2x or something like that on a viral video on Library. And that kind of makes sense because of the Library's current total user size, although YouTube is everywhere and is humongous. It's just huge, right? So it makes sense. So they have an inherently different like value. Because I was thinking from a pure monetary standpoint, assuming my numbers all remained fairly flat, it makes sense for me to ditch YouTube completely and try and just get as many people over to Library as possible because that's where I earn more revenue per view, per user, right? That's not a ton, but it's more than YouTube by quite a bit. Watch one of my last videos. I talk about the Library as a potential YouTube kind of, not necessarily competitor, but like, side-by-side existing e-servicer. And I talk about kind of the numbers behind that. But that would make sense for pure monetary gain. But really, you having YouTube around for those moments where it goes extra viral. And then whenever that happens, I always see this flood of extra people coming over to YouTube and the RSS feed and everything else. Then YouTube's handy to have around. Like, I feel weird pointing people to YouTube for many reasons. They spy on you and they track you from Kingdom Come, and they don't use a whole lot of free software, and they lock things down so much that I don't like it. I mean, so I'd rather people just use the RSS feeds or library or whatever. And so I feel weird when I point people to YouTube, but it does do really well for those viral moments. So I think I'm going to keep YouTube around for the foreseeable future because of that. But I'm just going to not play it up as much. Like I'm just going to kind of downplay the YouTube. Maybe I'll even push the YouTube links on my site down to the bottom. You know what I mean? Just kind of downplay the YouTube. Kind of push people more towards the services that are a little more respecting-y and I get a little more out of, honestly. But anyway, I was thinking the other day about that. About like what's the point at which I start ditching some of the platforms, right? But Google Play Music, iTunes Podcasts, and Spotify, I would have ditched them already if it cost me anything to keep them going, right? They pull all the information from the RSS feeds directly. So once my RSS feed is updated, all those extra audio podcast providers, they get updated a few hours later, and I don't have to touch anything. So while when I get this little trickling of of viewers from those platforms, it doesn't hurt me at all to have them. And hey, if just a tiny caravan full of podcast listeners are over on Spotify or wherever, and this makes it more convenient for them, well, why the heck not? If anyone can think of any places like that they would like, that it would make their lives more convenient to be able to have it on whatever platform, let me know. Some people have recommended a Roku. I have like a Roku app, so you could go to Roku and watch it. But then again, you can kind of already do the YouTube side of things via Roku, so maybe that's not really necessary. I don't know. Kind of weigh this stuff from time to time. It's a little inside baseball action right here is what's going on. Was that it? Was that what I was talking about this week? That was what I was talking about this week. See how painless that was. You just spent 37 minutes inside Lunduke's brain. It was fantastic. You can live there with the earworm that's been crawling around there since I saw that whole episode of Alfred Hitchcock. But then you can go over to linode.com/Lunduke. linode.com/Lunduke and set up a server. The next article that's coming out, or getting started, setting up some funky things on servers. I think that's going to be on Friday. I'm trying to space things out. I'm trying to not clump all the shows together. I'm trying to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe a Saturday show for here and there. I have tried to spread it out a little bit, not to inundate y'all and inundate y'all. The y'all slips out. But if you want to get set up, what we're going to do is I'm going to be basing everything on a Debian-based system. I'm going to have up and running over at Linode. So what you can do is you can set up a VPN at Linode. They've got a $20 credit, so you can just apply it towards that. And if you do want to follow along with some of the tutorials, you can set up just the cheapest Linode server that you can find that's running Debian. As long as you can get, and really any other provider's fine, or your systems are fine at home, or a virtual machine, whatever. Just really a Debian-based system, something you can SSH into, because we're going to go through setting up BBSs, and that's going to be fun. I mean, I just don't think a lot of people have gone through that process before. We're talking about setting up a modern Telnet-accessible BBS on a Linux machine. That's just cool, right? And then we're going to go off from there. We're going to be setting up a MUD and all sorts of stuff. It'll be fantastic. Anyway, linode.com/Lunduke. And then, of course, Pogo Linux have been supporting this show for 500 years. Since the year of our Lord, 1590, blah, blah, blah. I instantly forgot how to do math, even though 2020 minus 500 is not exactly hard. But Pogo Linux, luckily, they know how to do math. If you go there, you can set up their workstations, configure servers, rack mount servers, and get them all rocking and rolling. They're fantastic. And then, of course, they all run Linux. Gosh, they're glorious machines. Hold on. I'm going to show you. Can you see my machine? Oh, there we go, right there. That's my Pogo Linux rig back there. That's my Tempest. Super liquid cooled, mega fast. Oh, yeah. They can make your dreams come true too, my friends. Look at that. I'm like moving around. That's like magic. All right, everybody. I'm gonna head out. I hope everyone's having an absolutely fantastic week. I hope that your heart is filled with sunshine and your feet are walking on friggin' clouds. That sounds really good. I could go for a foot massage. I just realized my left foot is sore. I wonder what I did. I have absolutely no idea what I did. I'm going to go rub my foot right. I got a foot massager upstairs. One of those electric things that you put your feet on and it goes. Oh yeah, I'm doing that tonight. I'll see you guys later.